So, I think that is going to kind of bring us back into at least the narrative. I think you're the one person in the group who doesn't have the survival skill, but let me have Brennick roll survival. Just do it with advantage right now to give me an idea of how long it takes you all to get back. So we'll put you all at about like 6 or 7 days traveling back out of the wilderness before you make it back to Lonely Wood. From there, you'll be just about another day basically getting back to Brynch and Dar. So roll a d8 and add 8 for me, Brennick. Gotcha. So we'll go about like 4 in the afternoon kind of thing as you are arriving back inside of Brinchendar. Along your travels, you all would recognize that at some point in the use of the device, it was expended through its magical force. For whatever reason, you can kind of recognize, and over time, examining it, Brennick can figure out that there really isn't any arcane force left inside of the actual device. I think it was. I think it was Johan who was using detect magic, and he can figure out that the device is no longer a magical, admitting a magical aura of transmutation force. As you kind of figure this out, you all have heard of this black stone that seems to be almost like a ice, almost like a metal that seems to be kind of scattered throughout this area. And that's going to be one of the things where, as you have a little bit more of an opportunity to investigate this item, you will start to figure out that perhaps this is some of that same material. Do an Arcana check for me, Brent. And you'll kind of see that for whatever reason, whatever the summer star is, it consumes the power within the Chardolin, which is the actual black stone, to cast the actual force, the actual magic that day adjusted the weather to where, for your initial travel, you were walking in a very summer-like time. And it was a beautiful moment in time, very shortly lived, but it gives you at least a concept of what it would take to fight a god's power with a very mundane kind of power of using basically the power at the hands of, a very powerful and creative person, but also using the power of something as simple as this stone that just seems to naturally exist inside of Icewind Dale. But as you all make this journey back into Bryn Chindar, I think we will pick up with you basically coming back into the town. The guards will pretty quickly usher you back to this idea that Devessa has been waiting. You took a little bit longer than she was expecting, but if you are prepared to head to the council hall right away, she would like to see you right off the bat. Not the council hall, my apologies there. I should say that this is the town hall that you are being called to. Um, and if that sounds right, we will introduce the other two characters as you all are coming into the council hall, everybody having been summoned there by Devessa Shane.
Yeah, because I think Brannick, when he had left his note, had said they hope to be back within a 10-day, and now it's been almost twice that. So he would, cognizant of that and not wanting to get on a town speaker's bad side, he would go straight there. Yeah.
So, as far as the inside of Bryn Chindar goes, there are 3 main gates to this city. This is a city of approximately 1,000 people. Devessa Shane is perhaps the most busy of all of the 10 town speakers, as Devesa is a leader among leaders. They have the most secured city that overlooks the actual view of all of Icewind Dale, kind of able to see on a clear day, which is very rare, all of the other towns that make up 10 towns. When she brings you all into the town hall, you all on some level will be kind of waiting in that kind of awkward um, waiting room where there's a bunch of people who are just kind of sitting there and everybody's more or less awkwardly looking around at each other, nobody knowing if they're there to see her next. You're waiting as time just kind of flies by, and you really don't know how long you're going to be left here. Really hopeful that you're going to get to see her today and you don't have to do this all over again tomorrow. But time just kind of clicks on by, and eventually you're going to get called in. But before that happens, as everybody is sitting inside at least a little bit warmer of a location, you won't have all of your cold weather gear on you, which I didn't get a chance to add it, but just to make sure, Trey and Jimbao both will have access to um, cold weather gear, um, snowshoes, as well as crampons. You all can make sure to add those if you would like. But in general, everybody that you ever see in Icewind Dale is wearing cold weather gear. What it is effectively seal skin with like um, elk fur insides. So every bit of this is about like 3 to 4 inches thick. So everybody looks very hardy at any given time. It's very difficult to distinguish what any given person looks like other than kind of their height. Some people might show a little bit more of their actual body, but in general, everybody has a hood that kind of comes up over their head and kind of cones down in front of their head into just kind of this little corridor that you're staring through the fur. So, one, it blocks snow like below you, so you actually have to kind of look down to see in front of you so you don't get sunblind as easily, but it also blocks the wind from essentially freezing your face while you're traveling and does everything you can to have just the smallest bit of tunnel that you need to actually operate. Um, but inside of this actual town hall, you all will be in just a long corridor, about 20 feet wide, about 80 feet long, with a central hearth inside of it. And each of these central hearths burns in a few different fires along the same fire pit. So the hearth itself is a single stone structure in the center, but you will have at this point kind of 3 different locations where individual fires are burning within it. And you can kind of gather that while this satisfies the need it has now, everything can get much bigger about what this town hall serves. But while you all are sitting waiting, you will see a few of the guards pass by here and there, but in general, among the people who are waiting, you have. Can you describe a first impression of Brennick? And if you would like, this will be one of the few times where you don't have to be wearing all of your cold weather gear.
Sure. So, yeah, so once inside, where it's a little bit warmer, Brannick would take off at least the hood and stuff. So you would see what appears to be a human, pretty fair skinned. Looks like he stands a little, maybe a little over 6 feet. Um, he'd still probably have most of his gear on, but he not overly, not an overly large build. Looks to be maybe in his early 30s. Um, he's got kind of ice blue, kind of rather piercing eyes, thick, kind of shoulder length black hair. In terms of like what you would see on his person, aside from like the normal pouches and things, you would just see a dagger kind of at his belt, but no other visible weapons. Yeah, that'd probably be about it for physical description.
Excellent. And then can I get a physical description from either Trey or from Lucian Bao?
Um, yeah. So Trey, minus all the winter gear, he's a big old boy. He's more strongman size, like 6'5", about 275. Has a really big leather sack just filled with tools. And just tired from a long day, and caramel skin, and hasn't shaved in a couple days. That be it.
And then can you describe Lucian Bao for us?
So this would be minus weaponry. We're just taking like basic.
Well, the biggest thing that I want from this is a first impression of what you look like. If somebody's like staring at you in a waiting room, what do they see? Part of why it's important for Brennick to say you don't see any weapons on him is that is a clue that he doesn't kill people with weapons.
Right, but in general, would it be unusual to see people walking with weapons, or what inside the hall? Are they wearing weaponry?
At this point, by request of Devessa Shane, we're going with like the group is known adventurers. You all effectively have the charm of the town to where you are allowed to carry weapons, while not necessarily under guard eye. So
Okay,
if
so
you carry weapons normally, you're carrying weapons right now.
and how about is if your face was covered other than your eyes, let's say, would that be atypical, unusual, make you stand out, make you blend in?
Outside, entirely usual. Inside of one of the few warm places in all of Icewind Dale, a lot of buildings that you will go into in Icewind Dale, you still wear your cold weather gear. Part of this one in particular, this is one of the locations that you actually feel warm by going inside.
Okay, but my question is more like, would it be socially unacceptable to have that be your outfit?
That is up to you to find out at this point.
Well, then your first impressions would be utilitarian garb, uh, as nondescript as possible, but plain hemp, not silk. Um, Nothing fancy, utilitarian. Boots, pants, shirt, robe, hood, uh, covered over the nose, but the eyes are still there, and a headband that would also cover the upper forehead. Leather gloves. That's it.
Gotcha. My bad. I was definitely using the opportunity to fill up my water. So there'll be maybe some people who are entering this area who take a few moments to actually stop and look at you, but you will notice that besides the actual guards, um, my bad, I said that wrong. The guards who are actually here are not looking twice at any of you. All of you are known to belong here at this point. And that might be about the only clue for the three of you that among the people who are waiting in this location, you all might be waiting for the same reason here. As time goes by, um, you all will probably see one after another as everybody starts to come to the hall. For what it's worth, Lucianbao and Trey would be there like the longest. Effectively, we're just kind of going off the idea that you all were called to the hall when Devessa heard that the adventuring party was returning. Effectively, Brannick's party was returning back to Bryn Shindar, and she was hoping to kind of gather you all together. So the two of you would be here longest. You would see Brennick arriving. Brennick arrives with another human who seems to be, I believe he's a little bit taller than Brennick. And he carries a shield, has a mace with him, seems rather stout, rather strong, and more or less a well-armored fighter of sorts, although he carries himself with a lot more respect and perhaps gives that air of somebody who is indeed a holy man first and a warrior second. And then the other figure who will be traveling with Brennick is a little bit shorter of a person. I believe they are about 2.5 feet tall, 3 feet tall, and it isn't until they start to remove some of their clothing that you will see that this is indeed not a human. It is indeed not a dwarf. It's not even anybody who looks more or less humanoid. This is a little kobold. And kind of sitting down, more or less perfectly comfortable in their location, very much like they feel like they belong here. You see this other little person who's basically just sitting here, seems unarmored, seems less interested in a lot of things around, but quickly opens up a book and is kind of just perusing through their book while they wait for whatever they seem to arrive here in. And we'll say there's certainly another few figures who are kind of waiting in this area, but as everything kind of comes to a close, maybe around 5 or so, a little bit longer, you're going to have a guard who comes back out into this area and with a little bit of pomp and circumstance is going to announce to you all, to the traveling party of Brennick, Johann, and Volixus, Lady Devessa Shane would like to invite you into her quarters, and I believe we have 2 others here that will be invited as well. And as you kind of look around, there's a bunch of very like thin and starving, gaunt people, and then 2 people who very clearly don't kind of fit that same bill as they kind of like make eye contact. Uh, you there, Master Bao, as well as Master McGee. If you would follow me.
Just as a side note, nobody's going to be able to pronounce my name, so for simplicity's sake, I've only introduced myself as Jimbo.
Gotcha.
Wait, what? Your character's name is Jin Bao, but you go by Jimbo for like ease of effort for everyone else.
Correct. And because of the backstory, the surname is last. It just confuses everybody. So over my travels, just for like my own personal backstory for the DM, that Jimbo is
I
easy for.
taught English to little Chinese kids. That was why I was calling you Bao, was because they were all Bao Bao, which I think was like little one or something like that. It's kind of like, I feel like a nickname of like little kid. That was what I understood it as, but that's why I'm calling you Jin Bao.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I just think it would be funny. Just call me Jimbo because that's nobody can pronounce Jimbo.
I guarantee nothing because I have to say everything so much. It's really whatever comes off the top of my head. But it may one day get there.
All right, just for inside joke for everybody.
But as they invite you all along, you will follow this person. They travel through one doorway where there's 2 guards on each side of it. They, like the first of the guards to the right kind of opens the door. The other one just standing there with their poleaxe. Both of them are just out of the way. You walk into this room, and it's very much like the classical kind of court style room where there's a bunch of seating all facing a high seat that's behind a desk that could fit like 20 people. And there's nobody inside of this room. guard is going to walk you directly past and through, where you will kind of like turn around the edge of the desk, walking through another doorway. You'll be in like a small little room with two desks on either side of you as you pass right between them through another doorway where you will walk inside, and you are going to see a very young lady, maybe a teenager. And when I say maybe a teenager, she's probably about 3.5 feet tall. She is sitting there in very regal, extremely nice clothing, very warm looking, like mink kind of throw across her shoulders. She has a purple kind of cloak that kind of sits behind her and is kind of draped along this big chair that she is sitting in. She takes up maybe a quarter of the actual chair that she is sitting in. Her legs are basically like her calf is still at the edge of the seat, so she has her feet kind of just dangling in front, barely below the actual cushion of the seat. She looks very much in her realm of power and very much too young to have this much power. And the moment that you all are walking into the door, she is going to kind of bow her head to you all as she says, "Welcome, friends. I'm glad you were able to make it this time. I am sorry that we were unable to speak when you were last in Brinjandar." And then she'll look to each in unison and kind of nod to you all and say, "My name is Duvessa Shane. It is a pleasure to meet each and every one of you," as she kind of nods and says hello to Brannick, Johan, Valixis, Yimao, and then Trey. And she'll introduce herself to each of you. I don't necessarily want to take that time. But she goes through this very, like, proper and very respectful moment of actually speaking to you all for a second there. In like a little short introduction to, like, with her, does anybody have anything in particular that you would say to her as she greets you?
So Brannick would be, he would be slightly taken aback at, because he was picturing something a little bit different, but he would do his best to kind of hide his surprise at kind of the apparent youth of this town speaker. But he would, trying to be also polite, he would, after she greeted him, apologize for, that it took them a bit longer to return to town than they were expecting, but that he's glad that they could um, have this meeting now.
So in response to Brennick, please, do not fear that you have left me waiting. I understand more than most the trials and tribulations that come across any person who chooses to travel between our towns. And while I appreciate your haste and making sure to come directly here, I do understand that what you are doing is far greater than perhaps what most people imagine. But I also hope that perhaps my own knowledge and my own studies might perhaps be able to teach you what perhaps you are missing in your own. And again, this is somebody who's like 10 to 12 years old telling you she'll take you to school. Anything from Jin Bao or from Trey as she introduces herself to you?
Um, just being new to this game, would I have just, for the sake of the storyline, would I have been here for a little bit of time? Could I just say I got lost and I was starving and they were so kind to help me? So anything I can do to, be of service, I appreciate you and thank you for giving me work during this time.
On some level, level 5 adventure is pretty much a badass among all the badasses of the human area of this. So I wouldn't necessarily have it be that dire of a circumstance. If we don't decide to tie Jinbao and Trey together to where you all arrived from the same adventuring party, um, effectively on some level, I feel like the best way to bring in level 5 adventurers is that you all were on the same quest that Brennick's party is, and your parties have wiped out, and you are the two that survived. That's just one of those things about being a level 5 adventurer inside mechanically, inside this world. You all are already level, like, local heroes. Um, just getting lost and just starving is well below your station at this point. There's very little, like when she talks about the dangers of traveling, a lone level 5 adventurer doesn't necessarily have to worry about those things in any level, let alone an adventurer who's traveling. So for what it's worth, that's kind of where I think a lot of the story is just let's brush by kind of
Okay.
that, because realistically, you all are on your own badass at this point.
Okay, I copy that. When you started off in saying it's like it's so cold outside that it doesn't matter if it's Fahrenheit or Celsius. It's just cold. But I like that and it makes it so much easier. So
That's
often
far more for the psychology of the people who are around you, though, too. Like, part of that has to be me setting this actual setting. You may figure out, and Justin can certainly attest to it, most of the people you all meet in 10 Towns are not good people. Most of the people are dying and they trust nobody. They might be dying over this year, they might be dying over this month, they might be dying tomorrow, but most of these people are in very dire situations, and the temperature is only one of those parts of it.
okay, copy that. And Trey will just it's great to meet you, ma'am, and anything we can do to help you.
Yeah, I think among the things it would definitely be that, like, once you two did arrive on some level, we'll say, like, you've been kind of put up in the Northlook or another one of the local inns, and have basically been requested to wait for Devessa's summons. And it's, I could have I each of you roll a d12 for me. My bad, and by each I mean Jimbao as well as Trey. So we'll say Trey arrived 7 days ago and has been inside of the Northlook. And then Jimbao arrived 3 days ago. And again, that's really just if you guys decide to tie yourselves together, that is perfectly fine. But in the long run, it's not necessary. Um, that's again one of the things. I think the story moving forward is far more important than worrying about backgrounds that got you here. So as she kind of continues on, she will have a few moments where she chats with each of you, showing like that due respect, having this conversation. It's going to eventually come back around to the reason why she has called you all here. And she's going to discuss a particular threat to all of Ten Town. Among this conversation, I have a political enemy who tried to depose me before Oral's rise to power. And maybe 4 years ago now, just before she brought the everlasting Rime. His his name is not nearly as important now. But for what you will need to know, if you will help me, is he is now prisoner 237. And I would be intrigued if you would be so kind as to go to the prison at Revels End and interrogate him for me. He has been there for 3 years now, and perhaps he is reformed enough to understand the dangers that his people bring. Um, Let me get a deception from Brennick. Um, as she brings up the Arcane Brotherhood as an enemy. Just that was basically just to see if you have like an initial twitch as she brings it up. But she's basically going to start to talk about this prisoner 237. When I was uh, first being educated on what I must be as the speaker of this town and as the leader of all of the 10 towns, there was one person in particular, Prison 237, who came here from Luskin and, as a member of the Arcane Brotherhood, started to infiltrate the trade of Brinjandar. And it became quickly clear that he was trying to depose me and take over the town itself. I was able, with the assistance of adventurers, not unlike yourselves, to keep him at bay, and eventually we were able to capture and imprison him under the suggestions of the Lord's Alliance at Revels End. In his imprisonment, he has been there for these times, with little to show from the Arcane Brotherhood. Many feared that if we were to put him to death, as perhaps he did deserve, it is hard to say whether that was the right choice or wrong, but perhaps now it will be useful for us to learn more of what the Arcane Brotherhood perhaps had to do with the rise of Oral's Rime, or perhaps that it was all their creation from the start, as I fear that it might be. If you all would be so kind, I would like to send you there as my emissaries with the express need to have you interrogate this prisoner 237 and find out what you can about what he knows about the dealings of the Arcane Brotherhood inside of 10 towns, and perhaps also what he might know about the rhyme itself. So let's get a history check from Jinbao as well as Trey real quick. Can you roll a history for me, Liu Jinbao?
What are we rolling a history check in reference to, if I may ask?
At this point, you don't know. It was me testing to see what you might know about the Arcane Brotherhood. If you guys rolled high enough, I was going to give you more information.
Cool. Trey is just really confused about everything going on.
So Devessa will kind of look over to Trey and kind of seeing this confused look. Do you have any questions, my child?
Um, so are we going to we're interrogating someone, and then we're going to be going to meet the people who of the person we're interrogating, and we're going to, is that right?
The Arcane Brotherhood is explicitly known, but they are rather secretive about their different agents when they are outside of the school itself. And I was hopeful that with a known location of one of their agents, perhaps you would be able to find out anything about their plans that would be happening. Anything that might be of import to us here in Brinchindar and in the greater 10 towns of Icewind Dale as well.
Now with this prisoner, out of curiosity, is how far can we go in interrogation?
I would prefer if you do not start any wars over such things. The Lord's Alliance was explicit that they did not want to end his life, in case it would infuriate the Arcane Brotherhood.
Understood, ma'am. Um, I Trey just goes and turns to look to Brannick and Jinbao.
Brannick will kind of nod, nodding towards Devessa. I've spent some time in Luskin myself, and I've heard a bit about this arcane brotherhood. But yes, we can see what we can learn. We'll try to leave him in one piece.
That would be most desirable. What might you have learned while you were in Luskin?
Oh, just there are always rumors flying about, and as you said, they're quite secretive. I must admit, I'm curious to speak to this prisoner 237, but I did not mean to suggest I had any specific knowledge.
So let me get one more deception from you. This time I'm going to give it to you at disadvantage.
Should have kept my mouth shut.
She's just gonna kind of like look to you, and with a little bit of like a shimmer to her eye, you're gonna see as she kind of bows her head with the slightest little kind of dip to her brow, as gives you at least a little bit of a sense. She knows that you are um a mage of sorts, and the fact that you placed yourself inside of Luskin kind of tells her at least a bit of why you would have been there. Doesn't necessarily tell her, did you go to the school? Did you get denied? Did you go and you got kicked out? At very least, it tells her why you were there. Uh, and she's kind of acknowledging that, but doesn't really move along with it. And kind of looking back to you, Brennick, were you aware that in East Haven, and she's going to look up to one of the guards who's standing behind her, is a dark-skinned man who's wearing all of the actual um, heraldry of Bryn Shindar, but also has a very similar kind of like elaborate fur like shoulder piece that kind of sets his cloak kind of above the others. And she kind of like looks up to him. He kind of leans over and kind of whispers to her, not 10 days ago that there was a wizard who was inside of East Haven and they burned for his crimes against the town.
I believe I may have heard something about that.
Again, I believe the Arcane Brotherhood has their hand at work in Icewind Dale. If this Dazan, who was burned in East Haven, was a member, then surely Prisoner 237 should also know of his presence here, and surely they have their own hand in those things that are happening now. If you all would be so kind as to investigate this, I will send word ahead of you and have the way prepared such that you will have access to Prisoner 237. So kind of like looking around at, in general, like kind of a moment of silence. She'll be like, I trust that perhaps a stipend of 80 gold's worth of scrimshander would be enough to suit you each for these travels.
Would my character know what Scrimshander is?
Yeah, Scrimshander, I meant to say when I brought up the actual knucklehead trout, Scrimshander is a bone material in this location, tending to be from the knucklehead trout, that is essentially carved and created into like elaborate different things. Most specifically, it operates as money, as there is not much coin in 10 towns. As long as there is not trade, effectively the coin doesn't really exist for most of the people in this town, so, or this location. So it tends to be all a bartering system between the locations that have beer, the locations that have gems, and the locations that have scrimshander. Most everybody is bartering with something. Those are the three that are kind of like the monetary values. The actual coin itself is much more valuable here.
Okay, thank you. I go ahead and look at uh, the young miss. Now I'm all and good for the 80, but can we go ahead and throw on top of that a good word of recommendation to any of the local business advocates within the area if we'd like to do business separate from you, but I'd be more than happy to continue to do business with you.
Your presence with any of the traitors within the towns is very isolated to your own dealings with them yourselves. While I can certainly help where I can help, there is very little that I can do outside of Brinshander, where you already have a rather good name to yourselves. I don't believe there is anything else that I can do beyond that.
Oh, you must be joking. Someone as young and as passionate about their profession as you, I swear if I had as much attention to detail as you do, when I was your age, gosh, I'd be in a whole different situation, I guarantee it. I bet in just a few years' time, you're going to be reigning over a whole lot more than Brit Shander. But that's just my opinion.
She's just going to look at you with a cross eye. Kind of reaching back her hand back to the gentleman who's behind her. He's just going to set a bag into her hand. Sounds a lot like beads. You can kind of make out the sound that there's bone inside of there with kind of like the hollow ring to how it kind of sits down into her hand. And she's just going to open it up, look into it, and then kind of cinch the top of it back up and setting the bag onto like the front of her of like a coffee table kind of between you all. She's going to kind of look back. There should be approximately the value of 240 gold. Oh wait, I did that math wrong. 400, 240, 320, 400, yeah. There should be approximately the value of 400 gold inside of that for you. You are more than welcome to it if you are willing to undertake the travels that I require.
Brannick will nod, and I can only speak for myself, but that would be sufficient for me.
Well, yeah, I'm in.
Oh, it looks like Don might be muted. I don't know if he's been speaking this whole time.
Oh yeah, Don, you are muted on your side. Did you mute yourself? Looking like Rashad's about to join as well. So, assuming that Don has bit the hook and is willing to progress forward with the adventure here, Johan as well will agree. Um, Effectively, let's go for so each of you can create a custom item and call it 5 gold scrimshander, and then make sure to add 16 of those. And that's basically your share from the loot that she will drop for the party there.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Gotcha. Were you like there listening, or did you lose like everything?
No, I heard you. What are we getting?
My bad, you broke up there. Did you ask what are we doing?
What loot are we getting?
Okay, she is handing out Scrimshaw as effectively a stipend for your time. If you create under your inventory a custom item, just name it Scrimshaw and then give it a value of 5 gold and then mark down that you have 16 of them.
How do you spell Scrimshaw?
Just go for it. You don't have to spell it correctly. As far as what it really comes down to, as long
Thank
as
you.
you get the actual mechanics, that's what matters. But yeah, that's correct. Um, I will give you all a lot of things as long as you have a vague phonetic understanding of how it sounds. That is perfectly functional.
How do you set it?
You said how something, Don? What were you asking?
How do you set the value for the item? And
When you create it, one of the options should be the actual gold value.
Yeah, I think it's called cost override. Like if you go in when you go into D&D Beyond and you add a custom item, you can like if you set the cost override to 5, and then you can if you add 16 quantity, it should that should work. That's how I did it. And you can also just like name the item like 5 gold piece value scrimshaw or something like that.
I think I got it.
And Amara, I was just curious when we were like traveling back, uh would we have overheard anybody talking about the kind of temporary decrease in the cold? Essentially, Brannick's trying to get an idea of like what the kind of what size area was affected. Like would the people of the Lonelywood been like mentioning things as they passed through it, or when they passed through Tourmaline back on the way, or even when they hit Brinchander, like walking through the streets? Like he wouldn't be questioning people, but kind of more listening to see if he overheard anybody talking about it, because he just assumes that that would be a big thing if people noticed it.
What up, Rashad? I think among the actual shitty parts about that spell is it is a massive spell. It's a 5 mile radius, so it is a huge area that you guys warmed up for that day. The big problem with it is you guys were so far away from everything. I don't think it affects anybody at all but the adventuring party.
Okay, yeah. So and he would probably get that sense if nobody was talking about it, because like he doesn't know how he didn't really, unless he knew that as part of the attunement, like he knows the area of effect.
Yeah, I'm not sure how deep the spell would really give you the information versus like when you cast it. You probably would have caught like on the morning that you like woke up after casting it, you would have at least seen that you all were effectively inside of this 10-mile dome of beautiful weather. But this was very much one of those moments where you're like eye of the storm. You can see the blizzards. You can see the aurora of the Rime just at the wall of this spell. And it's like that moment of like, this is quite literally watching the spell that I just cast fighting against this god Oral.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So I think you might have the type of thing where there's a chance that like some hunter or some fisher might have seen it, but in the long run it's extremely likely. If you want to roll a D100 and you hit a 1 or a 100, we can say that you found somebody who did see it and they're spreading that rumor. How's it going, Rashad? Do you have a good New Year's?
Yeah, I did. I was trying to connect it to my headset because of where I'm at. I haven't been able to hop in with y'all for a while because shit's been happening. So, and this might end up being for like a short little period. It might end up being I might end up being able to join y'all like every other week for a little bit before I'm able to go back to like every week.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, this section at least is very episodic. So, like last time, they basically like repaired this artifact. And what Justin was just asking about was they had a moment where they cast this spell that kind of changed at least their local area to kind of the warmth of winter. Everybody actually can see under their feet, and like the whole group is going to have it. But the reward for that little mission was actually to gain the blessings of the Morning Lord. And with that, you have um, 10 temperate hit points at the start of every day at dawn. And that's kind of what like they gain from that one. Um, but at present, the group is back in Bryn Shindar. I feel like you were there for the end of the session where Devessa kind of called to the group, but they head off into the wilderness before stopping. But she actually has a request for the party to venture off towards the Sea of Moving Ice and to try to find prisoner 237, who is a member of the Arcane Brotherhood, and she would like the party to question him and figure out if he has anything to do with the Rime of the Frost Maiden. While you all are in Bryn Shindar, do you have anything that you would like to do prior to leaving on what will be like a 10 to 20 day mission off towards the Sea of Moving Ice and kind of like the northern area in that region?
Can we assume, for the purposes of the journey, that Johan is going to be casting create food and water, or should we like buy some rations, supplies? I don't know
Let
if
me
he ended
actually
up.
see if he switched to prepare it. I feel like that's one of those things where if he's actively preparing it right now, I think that is perfectly functional.
Because I don't think he did had last time. So if not, then Brennick would just suggest they get some basic supplies like that. But other than that, he does. There's not anything he specifically needs to pick up.
Yeah, I think the big thing is if you all don't have enough supplies, he can certainly switch to it. One thing that I would like to say is, at least for this moment, if I had Larry here, I would suggest if you're going to use it at times, he should have it prepared during all of the days, and not like just wheel and deal where it's like, oh yeah, on the days that we're skipping over it narratively, I'll prepare it on that day because I don't need to fight.
Just
Feel like I got the start of that, Don.
as a side note for the character, Jim Bao will always have food.
So then that means you're definitely looking to purchase rations. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, and some additional gear.
Anything is currently available to you from the PHB. If you purchase anything from the adventuring gear that is effectively like under 10 gold, that's all 10% off. But what in general are you looking for gear wise?
Well, I know the cold weather gear, which I just
Cold weather gear everybody should start with, as well as just for like the sake of things, the crampons and the snowshoes.
right, which I bought. Um, just add the gold that I spent for cold winter gear. The other ones I wanted, but I wasn't going to spend anything, so I figured out what's going on.
So if everybody gets that all set, you have access to it while we actually like prepare here, but you can purchase anything like that. But when you all are good to go, if we can jump into some survivals here, we can do Jinbao and yeah, I think he's going to be the one right now. Do a survival check for me, Jinbao.
I just want to say that I was picking up caltrops and some string.
Gotcha. Yep, you can definitely purchase those. And those are something that is available in the Black Iron Blades, where the group has 10% off.
Would I be paying this in gold or would I be paying this in scrimshaw?
If you want to pay in Scrimshaw, you got to tell me because that does not have a set value.
Oh no, this was out of just curiosity.
Oh, did you set your gold to 5?
It's what I rolled when I did the character creation.
Gotcha. I added 100 gold for you just as a starting thing, so you can add yourself up to 105.
I thank you very much. You are a wonderful DM.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say like if if people because I have some spare coinage and stuff if people needed it, but
Yeah, I think all of you all were roughly about that like 120 markish.
I spent a lot of mine on spell supplies.
Yes.
So
It's the way of a wizard. You should always be poor. If you're not,
Yeah.
you're not doing it right. So if everybody is all set, oh, a 4. Probably do one roll with Johan.
and in terms of the Chardolin, that black stone, is that the kind of thing that can be found sort of anywhere? Like, would it make sense for Brannick to, as they're traveling, try to spend his time like, not, I guess not really foraging is not maybe not the right word, but trying to find pieces of it, or is that the kind of thing that was more gets like mined in certain areas and
Do a perception check for me. So while you're looking around, traveling across the wilderness, there will be different times where you actually do spot like tiny little black dots of, with closer inspection, does seem to be the Chardolin. And when I say tiny little black dots, I mean very, very small pieces of this. This is kind of like looking for a shark's tooth on the like beach where there's a lot of stuff that could be this kind of like aggregate, but when you actually start to really inspect it for kind of that like glassy ice kind of look that this stone has, and almost like the malleable ability to kind of like move it a little bit, you can kind of confirm. But most of these are pieces maybe like half the size of your pinky's nail.
Gotcha. Okay.
But like you can write down like 3 tiny pieces of Chardolin. Effectively, though, that's nothing functional.
Yeah, I mean, he might pick him up just for kind of more curiosity's sake, but yeah, knowing that they're obviously not enough to power this thing.
Yeah, by now you have a pretty solid understanding. I don't think it ever gives me a weight on that thing. I would say that piece of Chardolin that makes up the summer sky was probably like, or the summer star was probably like 20 to 30 pounds of this ore.
Okay.
But you all can progress along the path. Do you think you would go, like to Tourmaline and Lonelywood, and then kind of cross on the northern side of Meridualden? Would you pass by Targos and Bremen and like cross on the southern side of Meridualden?
So Revels End, where we're going, is that where you circled up kind of northeast
Yeah, that little
of
bit of
the...
orange. It's basically like one of the most northern parts of like the kind of known Sea of Moving Ice.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, I guess Brannick would suggest they go via Tourmaline and Lonelywood, but he'll defer to... He's too busy spending his time looking for these Chardolin pieces, so he'll defer to the whoever's kind of leading the party in terms of traveling.
So I don't think it really matters that much. If nobody wants to just throw one out there to go for, you can certainly travel through Tourmaline and Lonelywood. As you kind of like make your way through those towns, you all will still pass by Targos and kind of follow the actual edge of Meridualden. Making your way through Lonelywood or Tourmaline, that is certainly one of the nicer locations. If you all chose to stay inside of Lonelywood, you could certainly rent a place to stay. Otherwise, that's one of the least friendly of the 10 towns. But as you all progress north along the edge of this lake, one thing that is kind of unique about those two 10 towns is they are the two that are not actually frozen into the ice. They are one of the few locations that still actually has a fleet of boats that are going out and fishing for knucklehead trout. And as you progress north, you all will kind of like join back up into what very quickly becomes a valley. So there's kind of that choice of you can follow this gorge all the way up towards the actual Red Glacier, but at some point you do want to make sure to climb out of it. But at the actual tip of the like actual delta, it's still relatively level. So there's going to be a point where you all recognize you're just kind of walking into a deeper and deeper gorge that's leading off this way. So you have to cross the river and actually make your way up the hill to get to the other side of the glacier, and eventually back into the wilderness itself, crossing the tundra. You all have a few days travel, probably going to be about 5 days total before you start to make your way closer and closer to the Sea of Moving Ice, where that kind of solidifies for you all that unless you've already passed it and missed it, there should be no way that you can accidentally pass Revels End, as Devessa Shane would have described it to you as this huge promontory of black rock that just juts out of the earth and out over the Sea of Moving Ice. And Revels End in particular is a castle or a keep that is kind of cut out of the rock itself. Among the things that you will see from it, as you can see there, it is a star that has kind of its 6 points that are kind of cut out of this rock. and some of it is underneath the stone itself. The actual tower that climbs out of it comes just above the actual stonework, and that is one location where airships can drop people off. They have a elevator down to the Sea of Moving Ice where actual seafaring ships can drop people off. Though she will kind of like mention at that point that, as far as most people understand at this point, you probably are not going to catch an actual ship in this location, but there may be still some people who are trying to sail it still, but it is less likely. But that's kind of like the initial description of what you all know to look for, is this keep that kind of like stands out of that jutting rock. And on your 5th day, you all will eventually come across this. And yeah, so it's going to be inside of blizzard conditions that you all start to eventually see like the few little breaks in the snow where you start to see this massive promontory that's just reaching out over the cliff's edge, and eventually you're going to see that actual central keep that is the tower that overlooks all of the actual prison. And the way it's described from Devessishane, the entrance is on that eastern side, where the like black stone is on the north, and that whole thing kind of protects the southern side of this prison from the winds coming off of the Red Glacier.
And when we were speaking with Duvessa, did she give us any sort of letter or note to like present to whoever's in charge here, or essentially explain how we get inside?
Let's see. I said she would send a message before you. And I should have the warden's name here to be able to tell you, and all I see right now is warden. Um, why can't I know I have the warden's name in front of me. I just have to find it. So, how about this? I have to go to the bathroom, and when we come back from a little break here, I will 100% have the warden's name prepared. But yeah, you all basically have, she kind of like sent a message, you can assume, through, like a wizard or somebody to the actual, warden to let you know, or let them know that you were coming.
Okay, my bad. I must have missed that part.
Oh, I feel like that was a throwaway line where I said I'll send a message ahead of you.
All right,
But
I'll be back in
that's
a
more or
few
less
minutes.
what I meant, where it's like, she's got the wizard Akolos, and she's just like, yep, I don't have to send you with a letter. I can just message the actual warden.
Gotcha.
So as far as things go here for the new folks, when we take breaks, we take about like 10-15 minutes. If you don't need all of the time, when we have the whole group back, we'll pick back up. But if you end up taking the 15, it's no problem too.
Going back.
I think you're the first backer, Sean. He's just doing you got put on a new work schedule, basically.
Not really. No. My work. I don't actually. Right now, my company's not able to get any work in, so it's affecting my pay significantly, along with some other bills. So I gotta take care of that
I
and
got you.
everything. Yay!
I'm back.
I'm back.
I'm honestly about to start looking into making money in other ways. 'Cause I'm like, shoot, this is this working for people. It's for the birds. And it's causing issues.
One of my friends was talking about this guy she's dating right now who wants to like put her through school, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I think I'm gonna go become a nurse." And she's like, "I hate nursing, but I think I'm gonna go to nursing school." And I'm like, if he's gonna support you, you need to like go to school for being an investor. Because if you ever want to get wealthy, it is not by working for somebody else. You got to do it for you. Start
For real,
turning your
for real.
money into your work.
I mean, that being said, nurses are in pretty high demand right now. So my sister's a nurse, so
That's why she wanted to do it. But when she's like, I don't like nursing, I'm like, why are you gonna go to school for something that you don't like to do?
yeah.
I mean, at that point in time, I get it. It's like, just picking a trade skill and, that's going to pay decently well. I mean, I've had a couple friends that are nurses and make like up to 80 a year. And, I mean, they do well for themselves and they invest like, part of their like income like into other things to like help with their own like student loans and shit. But, um, yeah,
Well, that's
nurses
what I
are.
mean, though. Like, if she's got somebody who's gonna support her and doesn't necessarily have to work as long as she's with him, I'm like, you need to like just ride that and invest the money to make more money.
Yeah. Yes.
If
Yes.
you don't actually want to go into nursing, why are you going to focus on a whole new thing? And then also, it's just another job. Like, it's a much better paying job. She's effectively in like the medical, like testing field as is. Like, she's kind of like back of the medical field behind closed doors.
Yeah. I mean, why, if she's already in the medical field, why not pursue a different specific field in the medical field that would give more interest?
Well, I think that's the weird thing. She's in a like isolated place where the businesses around her um are basically she's already at kind of the top of like what that pay field will be. There's nowhere to grow. Um and I don't think moving is really an option to go anywhere that would be better anyways, but it's a very weird thing to me like to have that conversation. To just hear like, yeah, I don't actually have to work, but I need something to spend my time on.
That's
Welcome back,
nice.
Rashad.
I'm freaking. I work 3 jobs. Like, I would love to have a sugar mommy or sugar daddy come into my life and be like, "Hey, I got you." Like, I would ride that so fast.
Listen, I'm a habitual bachelor, but I always said I'd marry the woman that would make me sign a prenup.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty like interesting idea to anybody who actually has to work for everything, but she's worked her ass off. If it works out for her, like that's fucking awesome for her.
Yeah, congrats to your sister. I hope she's able to figure out what route she wants.
If everybody is all set, you should see potentially still darkness in front of you because this is a gigantic map and this is me already shrinking it down. So it is a smaller map. This is one thing I'm not a huge fan of doing on Roll20, but it is a big map. So make sure that you all can see right now pretty much the southern side of this is revealed. As far as things go, you're basically going to be on top of this fortress before you can really see it inside of a blizzard. But you all are approaching it from one of the southern sides, and you can kind of decide from there. Again, with the understanding that Devesa would have let you know that there's basically the dock off on the western side that is one of the entrances, as well as the main entrance that is effectively the eastern side that is the other entrance.
I think we should just walk up to the front doors. I mean, we already had words sent for us. It'd probably be best just to go that way if our name is on a list or something.
I forgot I was supposed to look up the warden's name and I never did. I should probably find the warden.
Warden John Smith.
Buford T. Justice.
Yeah, I'm for going for that main entrance, probably the one on the landward side, right? To the east.
Whichever one we first straight beat. I mean, like
We're talking about this one.
whatever.
Yeah, that's the
Basically,
yeah.
Don, you're breaking up a little bit. You said whatever one.
I first we would make a beat.
So I think more than likely, if you all are going to go for what you might encounter first, it might actually be end up being on the seaside of it. Because through most blizzards, you're looking at like 15 to 20 foot of vision. This is the type of thing where you all would probably be walking relatively close to the cliffside so as to keep the actual sea of moving ice as a frame of reference, but not close enough that you're going to fall over it. Um, and then also just knowing that you're basically at some point going to walk into that stone that kind of juts out of the earth, that you're probably going to get stopped by the guards who are on this southwestern pinnacle, and the guards are just going to basically yell out to the group to halt. And I'm still in the drawing thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The guards will effectively yell out to you all to halt. And on some level, after a moment, you're going to hear no longer like an actual yell, but like an actual message inside of each of your heads that are all going to be pretty much the exact same as you all have a spell cast on you. And these messages say, "What is your business in Revels End? Declare yourself." Um, and again, the warden's name is Warden Marthanis, and you all would have heard this from Devesa at this point. So you can declare yourselves as being meant to be here.
Yeah, Brannick would, having heard this in his mind, he would attempt to sort of telepathically return the message saying that, Lady Duvessa should have sent word, and kind of giving his name and saying they've been requested to come here.
Would you actually mention the warden though too? I feel like those are the three key things: Devessa's name, that you're meant to be here, or like your name and you're meant to be here, and then the warden.
Oh yeah, like he would say something like, please alert Warden Marthanis, let him know we're here.
Gotcha. So at that point, you will actually, basically, all of you again will hear the same thing in response to that message. As far as it goes, with four of you not saying anything, this is going to be a little bit weird, but all five of you will then hear as the same voice basically responds with, "Proceed forward to the western gate. We will allow you entry there."
I yell, "Thank you."
All of you will hear inside of your heads, "You are most welcome."
I would give thanks as well.
So you all can place yourselves along that western entrance. You are going to walk underneath a gigantic crane that kind of overlooks this actual area. There's a little bit of what is effectively like a wooden structure, like a dock up top here that's at the actual edge. But you can actually see as like this crane kind of goes over the edge. I think for what it's worth, it would be normally in the up position. So you would actually see that like box of the kind of cranes, like the elevator that stands up at the top there. But you can see with the crane structure that that's what they would lower to allow entry from a ship that would be landing in that area. But they will bring you all in through the western entrance there.
And just as a quick role playing, um, as far as party situations, because Brannick has experience, my character will defer and usually only speak after everybody else has spoken. Um, but they're not scowling, joke, but you.
Sorry, you were breaking up there again for me.
Yeah, I think you just said like you're not going to necessarily be speaking unless everybody is like already speaking. I don't necessarily want to ever ask you to not roleplay. You are welcome to roleplay a quiet character, but I would like, for what it's worth, it as much as possible. This should be the place where you are most comfortable, like speaking regularly. Like these should be the people who open you up most of all. And I mean that could be some initial character growth for you, but that's one thing that you kind of like should get to. Again, don't have to force you to interact, but it is better when players interact.
More of a party initial state. For the group.
I'm sorry, Don. You're breaking up. I can hardly ever hear you.
So when they greet you, You're going to see a collection of these guards who come to the actual back gate. They are going to open that up and kind of bring you all in to an entryway. You're going to see a pretty stark hallway in front of you. The actual gated area leads into this hall that has two doors to either side. Neither of them looked especially reinforced, but they are still like reinforced doors. But with a quick little like look to either side, you can see that one of these is simply just a room of guards kind of relaxing, where at least one of these guards like who came out to greet you would come from. On the north, you have a room filled with like hospital beds, and maybe a couple of prisoners who are actually in the beds, but I think it is more likely that at present the hospital is indeed empty. Within the actual hall, you would see like an area where it seems to branch north and south. And then beyond that, you would see a long corridor that seems to lead into like a central area. From descriptions, this is the prison proper. Like all of the prison around this octagon that is the center is where the guards are. And then the guards are in the tower that leads up and from the center. But the octagon in the center, no, that's not an octagon. It's a hexagon. Yeah, the hexagon in the center is where all the prison cells are. So you all are kind of entering into this area, and one of the guards is going to I think invite you to follow them as they prepare to take you all to the dining hall at this point. Warden Marthanus will be with you all shortly. If you will follow me, I would escort you to the dining hall where you can wait, and if you need to, partake in some food while the warden finishes his business prior to coming to your ship needs.
And are the guards wearing any particular insignia? Like, are they wearing a crest of one of the 10 towns that we've seen before, or do they have like their own, or are they not really?
There's no need to roll on this. They are Lord's Alliance.
Gotcha. Okay.
There might be a sense where you can pick up different signs that any given guard is from a different of the major players inside of the Lord's Alliance. But in general, these are going to be pretty much humanoids, and all of them wearing Lord's Alliance things, besides little differences that somebody from like Baldur's Gate might pick up from a guard of Baldur's Gate. In general, they all are effectively Lord's Alliance to like somebody like Velixis probably only going to pick up that they're Lord's Alliance.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Um,
Nope, go ahead.
this area over here with all the cots, is this like the main area where the guards sleep and eat and just kind of like lounge?
No, that's the one I was saying was the hospital. Like to the north of you is the hospital beds, to the south of you is like a guard room.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Everybody hear me now?
That is 1,000 times better.
100%.
Yeah, I've been messing with it for like the last 45 minutes trying to figure out what's the most optimal setup here.
Yeah, I mean, besides that you're like crisp and clear, before it was like very much like that, like the trope of the drive-through microphone. of I might pick up like a word or two, almost never an entire sentence.
Listen, I've been switching between the PC, wireless, actual hard jack with the iPad, trying to configure like which one. Okay, but I'm here. I'm here. I got it.
So as these guards walk you through these halls, they are going to take you off to the north. You will follow that kind of hexagon wall to the north here, and then you're going to follow that past another entrance into the central area that's to the right of you. I feel like this is one of those places I should just give you the whole map.
Are we passing prison cells as we're walking down?
All of the cells are within the central area. You cannot see any of the prisoners, but they are just inside of this wall. And the guard's going to tap the wall that's on the southeastern side of you.
So as a guard here, how are you being treated? You guys stay warm? You guys keeping fed?
Inside of this location, it is 68 degrees. As far as you see, none of these people are wearing warm weather clothing. They are like, this is perfectly comfortable. All of the guards who are outside on the actual like watches, they're all wearing their gear, but like the guards inside are very much just in armor. Traditional Lord's Alliance, they don't look anything remotely like somebody who's in the middle of the Arctic conditions. But the guard will look to you, and our conditions are more ideal than perhaps most would assume. It is certainly a lot to stay here for the time that we must. But as far as the needs, we serve our duty. We are proud for what we can offer.
First order of business would be finding some place to stash our crap that we're lugging around, all the winter gear and all that kind of stuff.
We will certainly be able to do such things. When you see the warding, we will decide how long you will be staying with us. And the guard's just going to walk you all like through the actual kitchen, and then off into the other side of it, into the dining hall.
Wait, is someone missing?
I feel like Jinbao is not dragging his icon. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's missing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just looking at the icons. So
I'm here.
So does everybody see the path that you followed through the jail to get to here?
yes.
Yes.
The guard's just going to kind of point you all towards effectively like just this buffet that is set up along the eastern side of the dining hall and instruct you all, you may be waiting for some time. If you would like to partake in some food, you are more than welcome. The warden should be here with you shortly when everything is ready.
Jinbao rubs his hands together and heads to the buffet.
Veluxa says thank you and heads over to grab some food as well.
I will eat my rations.
Yeah, Brannick is going to stick to his own food as well, kind of knowing he's a little paranoid, knowing that these are Lord's Alliance and Duvessa at least may have some inkling of kind of his associations, so he's going to play it a little safe and maybe stick to his own food as well.
Trey is more along the lines of thinking of people are literally starving, and we got a buffet line going here. This is just wasteful. I'm not partaking part. I'm not partaking of it.
Well, I would notice that nobody else was eating. I'll turn around to Brannick and say, is there a reason why we should not?
I'm sure it's fine. I've just gotten a bit used to the food on the road, and I'm not particularly hungry, but I'm sure it's fine.
Are other people eating from this buffet or not?
Veluxa says.
There's no reason for me to assume that Johan is not as well. So 3 out of the 5 people in your group are eating.
Yeah, but I'm saying, other than the party, is anybody else eating?
Over the 2 hours that you all wait, there will certainly be different times where guards come through and a couple of guards sit down at a table and they seem to eat very quickly and kind of go on their way.
Then I would definitely tuck in.
At some point from that kind of eastern hallway, you're going to see somebody who steps out, not dressed in any of the traditional guard gear. They seem to be wearing like a little bit more kind of regal, but not necessarily like actually like kingly gear. They're kind of very still pretty on that some level of their finer clothing. And going to see as this person kind of looks over you all for a few moments and with a big smile. Ah, new guests. Adventurers? What are your names? Please tell me everything about yourselves. And he's just going to reach forward and with like all of his hands, like reaching his left hand over his right side, he'll shake one person, his right over his left to shake somebody else's hand. He's very quickly introducing himself. Counselor Kriv, it's a pleasure to meet you. Anybody introducing themselves, or are y'all just kind of ignoring him?
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Trey, and this is our group here. Yep, that's what I got.
Yeah, Brannick will kind of he'll introduce himself and kind of like tolerate the enthusiastic handshaking. And do any of them recognize the name Counselor Kriv, like where he might be from?
Let me get a history check from all of you, and we can kind of see from there. I feel like it's effectively disadvantage for pretty much all of you, whether you would know him. But you can always ask.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking like unless if we didn't recognize the name, Brannick might ask, but I just wanted to check if we did.
Sorry, please take that lowest roll.
Regardless of whatever is happening, we always take the first roll. As far as things go, like if we're rolling with advantage or disadvantage, it's always the first two. So like if you rolled like perception and I ask for a history, I'm gonna ask for your history modifier to like make it work. But like that's one thing I do to just always make sure we take the proper dice.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think looking over it, I don't have any particular reason why. Give me one more, Jimbo. Can you roll one more history from Jimbo? All right, yeah. So I don't see any particular reason why anybody should specifically recognize where he is from. He is wearing a little bit of iconography, but it's obscure enough that it's not really clicking for anyone.
Jimbo would say, introduce himself and say, I'm confused. I thought the whatever her name was, the townswoman folk, had sent word to the warden. Are you not expecting us?
He'll kind of like look over everybody. We were expecting some people. I didn't recognize your names at first, but I'm not the warden, so I maybe am out of the loop, as you might say. Why are you all here? Have you come to see one of our wards? Maybe to kill them. Who's the bastard?
I meant no offense.
Raises his eyes like, okay. Is this man all right?
Counselor Kriv of, forgive me, my
Daggerford! Yes, surely you've heard of me. I'm one of the best of all of the counselors. I make sure nobody ever gets a chance to go free. And he's gonna wink too.
Daggerford. Yes, of course. Been up here long. Brannick is he's thinking maybe this guy's just kind of starved for stories, and that's why he's being so excitable. But
And my position is one of importance. I would not argue that, and for that it does require that I have to stay here for some time. On occasion, I'll venture home, but I always like to spy the other counselors and make sure none of them are going to try to free one of these pieces of trash while I'm gone.
well, this and kind of gesturing around, this place certainly seems secure. I don't imagine many people make it out who aren't supposed to.
And everybody is, and he's gonna do the air quotes, is due their chance at freedom, and the Absolution Council can, of course, decide. I never do. That somebody has paid their debt to society and they are allowed their freedom.
If Alexis kind of asks us, why would you assume that someone would just set someone free, though? You seem to be suspicious of some of your counterparts. Why is that?
Not everybody is as wise as me and understands that these people are here for a reason and they should never be allowed to return.
But it's kind of goes like I guess. I mean, if that's what you believe, and she just kind of like backs away a little bit.
And the warden, what kind of man is he?
The warden is powerful enough in their way. They can be a force that follows their heart more than not. But in general, the warden understands the need to keep dangerous criminals locked away and underneath the watch of the Lord's Alliance.
Indeed, indeed. And do you have much interaction with the prisoners themselves?
It's like a little whipping motion with his right hand, and I'll kind of like look over to you all and no, sadly, most of what I get to do is breaking their hearts when they hope to be sent on their way. The Absolution Council meets rather rarely, but when we have the chance, I like to do what I can. But it's rarely more than breaking someone's will.
Well, I'm sure a man of your steel resolve is well placed on this council. Who else? Forgive me, I don't know much about how these things work. Who else sits on this Absolution Council, as you call it?
At any given time, there are 10 of us, but at present we only have 3 who are currently here. And is gonna wink over. I feel like Trey asked. Um, at present, we only have the 3 of us who are here. And he'll bring up Counselor Voss Anderton, who represents Neverwinter. He'll have, okay things to say about him. You can kind of gather this is somebody who actually listens to people, tends to keep them here, but he has like a sense of like he votes like what his heart tells him is right. And then he'll bring up Counselor Jill Torbo of Baldur's Gate, and you can 100% get that he has like a sour view of her. And he'll kind of give you that perception that she's pretty soft and tends to give people the benefit of the doubt where oh, something probably happened and they probably don't deserve to be here. And you can rather like pick up pretty quickly. Like Kriv thinks he can't go because of people like Jill, where he needs to make sure to vote that somebody has to stay locked up. So this person can't vote to say, like, maybe we could give him another chance. But those are the 3 who are currently sitting on council here. Um, and he'll give you the information that right now the warden effectively is the tiebreaker. If at any given time it happens, but only members who are in Revels End can actually make the vote. So while the other 7 are all away, there's currently basically always, as long as all 3 are voting, there's always a deciding vote.
Right, so it sounds like Lord Voss is kind of the most likely swing vote in edge cases. Good to know.
Exactly.
That's Brannick thinking to himself, not saying that out loud.
No, that's 100% the impression you're supposed to get, though. Voss is kind of like going by like what he thinks is the right and the moral thing to do. Jill can easily be kind of swayed by just like her feeling that people deserve a second chance, and then Kriv is always no. So you all spend a good bit of time here as Kriv's kind of enjoying your company before eventually the warden is going to walk in. Let's see. So the warden is, hey, the warden is going to drop enlarge reduce. The warden's going to walk in, and you're going to see this rather feminine character who is standing in kind of like a red robe. And as they look towards you, they're just going to kind of bow and good day to you all. Welcome to Revels End.
Good day to you, Warden, and thank you for seeing us. I am Trey, and this is Brannick, and this is Val. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Rashad, and Jin Bao.
You are all known to me. I have spoken with Akalos quite recently and was aware that you were coming to see 237. And the moment Voss hears this, he's just going to laugh. Ha ha ha! Kill him it is! Voss, your presence will not be needed for this. You can go on your way. If you all would like to follow me, I will take you to where you can meet with 237 in private.
Brannick will nod and he'll turning back towards the counselor. Pleasure to meet you, Counselor Kriv. Perhaps we'll have a chance to speak again before we leave. And then he'll move towards to follow the warden.
I will follow behind as well.
Jimbo follows.
I follow as well.
So the warden is going to walk you all back through the kitchen. And then as you get to that kind of entry area, like on the north side, I didn't actually say it before, but you'll see like signs of the armory off to the north. That door is always locked. But you can see that it's like essentially like a prison cell, kind of like a metal gate. And then off to the south, the warden will lead you into the actual prison cells. And for what it's worth, I think I'm just gonna reveal the whole thing. As they are going to walk you inside the central area, where the guards are basically on watch, like inside of effectively like a keep inside of this central area. And this whole room of prison cells, I think there's like 14 prisoners right now inside of Revels End. And there's, I think, 32 different beds, like 32 different cells. So they are at very minimal levels of what they can keep imprisoned here. But as they walk you into this central area, you'll see where there are people in cells. They are all locked up, basically, most of the days. They effectively bring them out to the yards where they have like a little bit of time to quote unquote exercise / freeze their butts off. And then they are fed, given a chance to go to the privy, and basically taken back to their cells. Effectively with like 22 hours a day locked inside of their cell, kind of thing. This is not a nice place. Most of them are pretty much high criminals who are here because people are afraid to execute them. This is that same way that Devessa kind of described that the Lord's Alliance was afraid to execute Prisoner 237 because they didn't want the Arcane Brotherhood to kind of come back at them and risk starting a war over this person who tried to take over 10 towns.
So more Siberian gulag than Club Fed. I know what you're saying, right?
As far as things go, though, they still are in that 68 degrees, like inside. But as far as like being in the actual prison goes, it's not necessarily a death camp, where I feel like that was kind of the like undershadowing of a gulag. Was it's like, look, we pretty much know within 2 years you're going to be dead, and within 6 months it's really high probability that you're going to be dead. This is definitely a little bit more survivable, but part of that is under the idea that also, if somebody walked out of this place, they're in the middle of the Arctic tundra, they're not going to be able to live for more than a day. And that's definitely part of the security in the very Siberian gulag kind of way. Because that was definitely one thing that Stalin was really good at, was like taking isolated locations that you could never get free from, or like putting people on a desert island that you were just guaranteed, if you weren't in the prison, quote unquote, getting fed, you were going to die. And this is very much on that level.
Gotcha.
So as uh on the wrong page of my notes for my name, as Warden Marthanis takes you inside of that central part of the keep, you'll see the guards, who are basically all kind of like realistically hanging out, and they basically like look occasionally to the outside through like what is effectively like arrow slits and kind of murder holes. And more or less, the guards are just chilling. They don't have to do anything. They don't really have to worry about the prisoners. And that's part of that security feature, is effectively, if the prisoners are here, they can't get anywhere. Like, they can't go anywhere, even if they got out. But effectively, the guards are there just to still keep watch. And there's a group of them. Inside of the central area, though, there is a small staircase, and Martinez is going to basically lead you all up that staircase. And this is where having all those guards there might have been a mistake. So let's see if I can do this right. Too high. I thought I set it up the right way. It's all in reverse. So, bam. So the second floor up, you all are going to come up on a guard room. This is just like simple barracks. It's just beds, storage compartments for their actual gear. Nothing especially nice or surprising there. As you get to the highest floor, the highest floor before the actual roof, which there's no reason for you all to see the roof, you are going to arrive in what is pretty quickly easily noticeable as the council chambers, because you can see the 10 seats that basically offset them for interviewing people for parole, basically. And as you all arrive in this location, the warden will basically invite you all to take a seat. And as they do so, they are going to tell you that they will bring 237 up to you presently. If you end up with any questions, you can summon the warden. But if you all don't have any questions before they are set, they're going to go into the north eastern of these rooms, which is her office or their office, and shut the door behind themselves.
Jimbo asked Brannick what he thinks about our host.
The warden seems fairly no nonsense, I guess.
Before you ask that, does everybody have did anybody have a question for the warden?
I guess Brannick would be curious he would probably ask the warden, like, if this, because I think we had heard that 237 may be a magic user, how they ensure that nothing like that goes on in here. They can't attempt to use magic to escape or cause trouble.
So inside of the room, you can watch as Martinus starts to cast a spell, and you'll see as in the very act of starting to draw like a little silver cord out from thin air, you're going to watch as the silver starts to disintegrate within their fingers. And as Martinus looks back to you, the warden's going to smile and say, "Within the council chambers, magic is blocked. Inside of their cells, magic is blocked. As far as everything goes within Revels End, magic will tend to be blocked. And where it is not,
I head downstairs.
and where it is not, the guards belong, the prisoners do not."
Now, how does that type of magic work? Like, is that, like some enchantment stuff or rune based stuff, like across the board? Or is that just a geographical, item about this jail?
Each room is warded in their own way, where necessary.
Can I do like a perception or investigation check on the room to see if I notice any runes written anywhere?
Roll an Arcana check.
Jimbo places himself by the stairs.
So wait, you're not leaving the room? You're just going to the stairs now?
Well, you didn't acknowledge me before, so
If you want to leave the room, I acknowledged you in that when you said that, the warden stopped, watched you, and then continued on. But they're not necessarily going to react to everything that you do.
understood. I come back upstairs. If I didn't see anything, I come back upstairs.
What were you looking for?
I was when you said he was disappearing the silver and he cast a spell, correct?
Yeah, they cast the spell, and in starting the spell, they were drawing a silver line through the air, and that silver line was burning up. It was being dispelled in the process of casting it.
Yeah, so I got the sense that she was essentially giving us a demonstration when Brannick
Exactly.
asked, how they keep magic, for how the prisoners who know magic from causing trouble, and then she kind of used that to show us, like, there are awards here or whatever.
So, Felixus, as you're looking around to try to gain a sense for what's warding this, you can actually see inside of the actual stone signs that the very mortar that is used to build these different parts of the building is actually warded in itself, so that it is like a net of anti-magic that kind of forms around any given one of these rooms. In effect, this is effectively like a magical Faraday cage, where inside of where the magical mortar is used, magic is cut off from the weave. You can start to manipulate the weave, but the moment you start to affect it, it is dissipating the actual magical power. Effectively, Velixis and Brannick, you cannot cast spells inside of here.
Yeah, so Brannick would be trying to hide a sense of disappointment, because his initial idea about interrogation would have been, once he learned that these wards were in place, he would have to obviously rethink his initial idea. So he would try to hide that, not give away that kind of his initial idea has been thwarted, but it might be visible.
I would try to indiscreetly make my way towards Brannick and whisper, I don't like being trapped up here with no magic.
It is a unsettling feeling.
I'm sure it's going to be just fine, guys. I mean, we're here to do a job. I mean, they got the red carpet out here in comparison to the world. I mean, and people know we're here. I mean, they're not going to do anything to, like, what's the turd, like a turd in a punch bowl. No one's going to rock the boat.
Felixus raises her eyebrows and says, "What makes you so sure?"
I'm just trying to be optimistic.
Yes, I mean, I've seen no cause for alarm as of yet. It's perhaps we'll know more once we actually speak with this prisoner.
I mean, we are in a prison that is used for holding high valued persons and dangerous persons. So to keep everything safe across the board, I mean, it's ingenious to just go ahead and enchant the mortar itself than having to go through the process of doing a whole bunch of writing and hiring a whole bunch of other people. Like, this is a marvel of architecture, and it's to make it even across the board for these dangerous people.
Other than the party, who's still in the room with us?
Assuming we kind of stepped back a little bit, if you were asking anything else of the warden, the warden. Assuming you guys want private time, the warden has already gone into their office and has left you all alone. It is just the party.
Okay, I just didn't know whether I could speak freely or not.
That is a wonderful question, and you should probably continue to wonder that.
I think it's. What about our safety? Jim Bao asked. This place is harsh and death is always near. We should be careful. Am I correct in remembering that you said in this room, in the prison cells, and in the councilman's rooms, it was blocked?
You can roll a history check real quick. Or a simple intelligence would be better, actually, than history.
And Brannick would also be, he would probably say, assuming they occasionally do have need for magical interrogation, perhaps they have some place set aside, should it should it come to that. But I would agree with you, Jimbao, that we should perhaps avoid causing any problems with the warden and the guards while we're here.
With a 7, I'll give you. You gathered that the warden was saying that wherever the prisoners are meant to be is warded from magic.
So that's going to be basically everywhere that we can possibly go in this little area of the map.
I mean, as far as things go, if you're trying to ask the warden about where you can cast spells, you can ask the warden, but you can assume that you are still in the room where that you cannot cast, and then their cells were below you. I'm not sure like what level of you're trying to figure this out, but on some level, staying in character, I don't think you have any clue where it's going to be safe to cast spells and where it's just going to be a dud.
Thank you.
Do we have any windows where in the room from where we are?
I think for what it's worth, those are arrow slits that kind of look off into the distance behind you all.
Could I do a perception check just to see if there's any like rustling going on down below us? Like, is it like, hey, we're all trying to get organized together, or is it all right? We need to go get prisoner out of X cell.
I'm not sure what you're looking for, like what kind of information you're looking for, but you can definitely do a perception check. But what is the rustling? We're trying to get shit together. What's that mean?
I mean, after hearing a bit of the paranoia about death and like not being able to cast magic and you know just wanting to follow up, it's like, okay, maybe it's worth looking out one of these arrow slits to see if the guard is about to come rushing up and attack us or something along those lines, or are they actually going out to go get the prisoner?
Yeah, you can roll a perception check and look outside of the arrow slits.
Yeah, and as soon as the warden left, Jim Bao would have been looking all over the place.
One more. Looking out, you can see for probably about like 30 or 40 feet. You are high in the air. There is still a blizzard kind of raging, and you're just low enough that you can make out a little bit of the null space that the actual stone structure probably creates for this area. As far as things go, there's no sense of the guards outside of this. You guys are well above and up in the air.
Okay, well, I go ahead and just wait for the prisoner to come up, and I start taking out my carpentry and smithing tools in case we need to use it.
What are you gonna build or smith? What are you taking out?
Oh no, this is for interrogation, just to like try and intimidate the person as he comes up and just be in the I'm going to let everyone else talk. I'm just going to stand in the corner looking menacingly and just try and hype everyone.
Jimbo, are you still over near the stairs?
No, like I said, as soon as the warden left, checking out the room.
All right, you can do another perception check. What are you looking for in the room?
I'm just looking from a strategic standpoint, watching my back.
Gotcha. So if you're looking to not have your back exposed to anything, the northeastern corner or the northwestern corner give you the full view of everything. This is a very austere room here where it is essentially this table and then the two doors to the north and then the actual stairways that go south. It is otherwise an empty room. Like there's nothing really about this room other than the fact that it's meant for talking to the prisoners. So you can pick one of those or the other. If Velixis and Brennick are sitting down, you will eventually start to hear the actual footprints or footsteps of people heading up the actual stairs, where eventually there's going to be a guard. Damn it, fucking alt. A guard who steps out first. And then as they come through, you're going to see behind them as a older man steps out, and then another guard comes up, and they will look over between the group and looking to, if Brennick's sitting in like that central position, you already kind of look like a leader, and you'll see as one of the guards looks to you. Prisoner 237, for your interrogation. Do you need anyone to stand guard while we keep him here?
Brennick's going to kind of look towards the others, then kind of seeing that Frey is a pretty big, imposing guy. He's going to look back towards the guards and I don't think that'll be necessary. We'll call or send if there's any trouble.
They're just gonna kind of like step forward to you and pulling out like a little like folded book. They're just going to kind of open it up to a page, and you're just going to see like a little bit of information where it says 237 towards the bottom, and they're just going to ask if you would to take possession of prisoner 237, just X here. And there'll be like a little pen that they pull out with their other hand.
Brennick will nod and make a notation.
And then the guard who is already by the stairs is going to start to walk down the stairs. The other one passes behind 237, and they will disappear into silence.
Can I pull one of those guards to the side of the corner of the room for a second and ask him something?
What are you trying to ask?
So, just, hey, strong person to strong person. You work here, you know it's about to go on. How far can we go? And also, what should we not do? Just asking, like, if there's anything, customs, otherwise, that we need to follow while we're here, and kind of like wink at him.
It is not my duty to tell you what you are allowed and not allowed to do. Prisoner 237 should be replaced living into their cell. And the guard's going to walk away.
Can I try and slip him like just do like a handshake or something and slip him like one of those like scrimshaw like pebbles?
You can do a sleight of hand, sure.
How's the prisoner? Is he restrained, center of the room, sitting in a chair?
Looking over, the prisoner is just standing there. He's a man, probably 40 to 50 years old. He's not freshly shaven, seems rather scruffy for what things are. He's wearing really nice clothing that have probably aged since he's been in here. Looking over everything, he could be somebody of semi-noble birth. But for what it is worth, you can tell pretty clearly this is a prisoner, but he's simply just kind of standing there, arms to his sides as he kind of like looks over. Let me get a perception check from Jimbao.
Sorry, one sec.
So you can see this person doesn't seem to show any signs of being intimidated. They don't have a broken spirit for being somebody who's here, but you can actually tell this person is quite intelligent. He's picking up a lot of what is happening in this room, and it doesn't take long for everybody to kind of pick up that same thing. And he's going to just kind of like with a sly little look, never really breaking eye contact with Brennick. He's just going to kind of ask to break this first little bit of silence. And
Is it?
your friend, what's your question?
Is there a chair in the room?
There's 11 chairs behind the desk.
Bring one out to him and ask him to sit.
Again, as the guards are leaving, he's going to break the initial silence and he's going to say, and your friend who's bribing the guard, is it to injure me that you have to bribe them? This whole time making eye contact with Brennick.
Well, I imagine we all hope it won't come to that.
And what do you imagine that it will come to?
That is entirely up to you, I would think.
Well, you don't belong in that chair. You're certainly not on the Council of Absolution. So what brings you here to see 237? And he's just going to give you a very like regal bow as he keeps his feet together. As his head drops down, his right hand is going to kind of swoop from his left shoulder off towards his back, and his left hand is going to kind of sweep down from like beyond, like fully outstretched to the left, down towards his belly as he kind of like moves his arms in this like smooth flowing bow. And there's a certain level where everybody will recognize this is somebody who's high enough of a station to respect himself. And despite what he looks like, he's no less respectful. What brings you here?
Well, before we get into all that, Prisoner 237, it doesn't have much of a ring to it. What is your actual name?
The lackeys have been sent for me, and you don't even know who I am. What is your name, friend? Be kind. Tell me, and perhaps 237 will grant you the same.
Brannick is going to kind of give him a look and very well. My name is Brannick.
And as you share that, he's going to step forward and reach out a hand to you to shake your hand.
Brannick he'll hesitate, but then he will extend his hand out to shake.
The moment he grasps your hand, you're going to feel like a strong pull as he kind of like drags you a little bit towards him and starts to like actually like finger like with the pads of his fingers on like the palm of your hand, and he's like very quickly going to like feel the softness of your hand. You're not like your friends. My name is Valish Guts. And with a sly look towards you, of the Arcane Brotherhood. And it should be very much unclear whether he's telling you he is a member of the Arcane Brotherhood or whether you are here as a member of the Arcane Brotherhood. What's Brannick going to say?
So just I guess before he responds, is Valish Gaunt a name that Brannick would recognize?
I'm not sure if we were ever clear enough on the timeline of your involvement in the Arcane Brotherhood and how deep you got in it, but I'm going to say you are not likely to know. He's not especially important as far as the Arcane Brotherhood goes, but you can kind of pick apart some of this as you question him here.
Yeah, so essentially Brannick how I think of it is he hasn't actually joined yet. He was kind of in the process of trying to get one of the few spots, and then in his attempts to essentially sabotage one of the other people's when he kind of had to flee because it all backfired on him. So he wouldn't, yeah, he wouldn't know much about aside from what he had learned as part of his attempts to gain entry. So I thought it was a long shot, but just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, at this point, I think that solidifies what I already was kind of thinking, that you didn't actually have the connections to know somebody of his stature. What is Trey doing as he grasps over and pulls Brannick forward? You're rushing forward to.
I'm not rushing as he just moves in to come closer to the table. I'm just going to walk behind him, um, just so that he knows that there's no way out of here. I'm not saying anything, just looking
Still
straight
looking to
ahead.
Brannick. He's still kind of holding your hand, and it's very awkward because he is still petting like the underside of your, like he's petting like the palm of your hand, still holding your hand, and he's just going to look to you and. Your friends are worried about you, but I assure you I am no danger to you here. But if you would be willing to spare your friend a life in a terrible place, perhaps all of your answers could be found.
So Brannick will he's going to remove his, move to take his hand away and um, kind of repeating, Baelish Gaunt, the Arcane Brotherhood, or a perceptive man, and he'll give kind of like a small lopsided nod. Again, trying to essentially not really trying to give away whether he's talking about Baelish Gaunt of the Arcane Brotherhood or talking about him being perceptive that Brannick is. He's trying to kind of be similarly coy, I guess.
Gotcha. So that one, just do a traditional deception here for me. He's just gonna look over towards Felixus, and he's with a head kind of tilted to the side. Is this your creation? He's gonna reach over to pat Felixus on top of the head.
Melissa kind of just bites at him and says, I am no one's creation.
Make an unarmed strike.
Give me a second to find it.
I think it's usually that last action option on the actions thing underneath your main like attack.
So as he reaches out, you are definitely able to chomp down on his hand, and just with like a little bit of a cut, he's going to look at the blood coming from his hand. Ha ha ha! Intriguing. Kind of like twisting around to the table where he throws his elbows up on the edge of the Absolution Council's table. You see as he kind of like throws his shoulders back a little bit and looking over towards Jinbao and keeping Trey inside of his view. He's going to throw his head over his left shoulder, looking back over to Brennick. So what do you say, boys? Would you care to make a new friend?
Let's start with why you're here. Perhaps we'll decide that friendship is mutually beneficial, but we'll need to be a bit more forthcoming before we get to that point, I think.
Prisoner 237 might have made some mistakes to land himself here. Perhaps Prisoner 237 thought that the Arcane Brotherhood would keep him safe if anything went wrong.
It seems perhaps Prisoner 237 has overestimated his own importance. It would be wise to keep that in mind.
3 years in, indeed, I'm starting to doubt. But isn't that why you're here, friend? Have you not been... And he pauses for a moment. You're really not here to bring me out. So what are you here for?
Can I go ahead and put both of my hands right on his shoulders, like close to his neck, and just say, that depends on how you speak with us?
He's going to put one of his hands back onto your shoulder, and he's just going to wink at you as you feel a shock of electricity flying through your armor. He's like, friend, try to stay cordial. You don't need to lay your hands on me. And if you do, you may find yourself in more pain than you were expecting. So please, friend.
Would the rest of us be able to the rest of us notice the Is there any sort of visible sign of the electric shock?
Effectively, all it is here is static electricity. You could tell that were you all not in this room, he would have just cast an actual spell there.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So it wasn't like a shocking grasp, like spells. Well, at least
It was 100% a shocking grasp.
Oh, but not like not. I almost felt like he had found some way around the wards, but it was essentially him casting it, but being blunted by the wards. Got it. Okay.
Precisely.
Wait, so would it still count as him casting a spell, or just it fully nullifies itself?
The way I described it, that you feel an electrical shock is all you got from it. But he 100% cast shocking grasp. It just doesn't actually go off.
Okay, because I have Mage Slayer and I can make a melee attack reaction.
If you want to take it to combat, you 100% can take it to combat.
I'm gonna look at Brannick for any kind of signal.
I'm gonna center myself and put my arm on his shoulder and say, "Please, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Grab a chair, bring it to him, and ask him, please sit down."
I will go and grab a chair and say, "Please sit down."
I spend my day in a cell. It's so silly to come up here. I can stretch my legs, stretch my arms, to sit and waste it away. I don't need a chair, but thank you for your kindness.
Turn to Brannick. I don't mean any disrespect, but I thought we were hired to come here to do a job. We should do that job and then get out of this godforsaken place.
Brannick will kind of give him a nod, and then look back towards Valish. I'm afraid my friends may not be quite as patient as I'm willing to be, and I do expect that it would be best for your health for you to answer our questions a bit more directly.
When Jim Bao asks you, "Aren't we here to do the job?" Kind of interrupting you there. I'm sorry, I don't like to interrupt, but the character would. Kind of like in the process of him saying that, he's going to kind of bring his attention all the way back to Brennick and just, what is your job?
There are certain elements who believe you may have information useful to them. As I'm no doubt you've already surmised, we are here to extract that information. We would prefer it to be bloodless, but it will depend on you.
Information concerning is your job.
Tell us, what exactly were you sent here for? You were causing trouble for the powers that be in Bryn Shander. I would hear your side of it.
I came here of my own volition. I was not sent by the Arcane Brotherhood. I was trying to impress those above me. It was all very simple.
Can Brannick get any sense of how truthful that answer is? Kind of watching, I don't know, watching his eyes, seeing if they kind of like dart about a bit, or if he hesitates before he answers, or anything like that.
You can do an insight here. Overall, his disposition hasn't really changed. So if he's been lying to you, he's been lying the whole time. If he's been telling you the truth, he's been telling the truth the whole time.
Gotcha.
Alexa wants to ask, what do you mean you came here of your own volition, and that you weren't sent here by the Arcane Brotherhood?
Jim Bow's going to start cooking.
Without getting too close this time, he's going to like mock kind of pat Valixis's head, this time not actually reaching out for Valixis. And he's just going to say to you, he's like, I was a member of the Arcane Brotherhood. You probably know nothing about this, so it's all above your head. And he kind of winks at that little comment. But if you, say, had somebody who you wanted to impress, a dragon, you would do everything in your tiny little paws to make that dragon happy. No? I came here to impress the Arcane Brotherhood. And I failed. I thought they would be here for me. But apparently, they didn't care.
What would make you think that the Arcane Brotherhood would be impressed by political machinations in Bryn Shander? If that is what your true intentions were.
There are few things in Icewind Dale worth the attention of the Arcane Brotherhood. But I had heard at least enough utterances from those above me that there was at least something planned to send a scouting party into this area. I thought perhaps I could pave the way, and while Luskin has Targos, perhaps I could have given the Brotherhood all of 10 towns.
Wait, and this is like you're trying to give them a whole region of area to impress them, and that's like your first date?
Kind of looking back towards Trey. My boy, I was already at third base. I was trying to hit it out of the park.
I have heard they can be difficult to impress. But these mutterings you mentioned, could you be more specific? Perhaps we've come across some mutterings of our own in our travels, and perhaps there is still some way we might assist each other.
Hmm. How might you assist your friend? He's going to lean forward, again, getting pretty close to Brennick. Arms kind of crossed across the desk. Your friend is in great need. And some things can only be said once.
As you said, we are not the Absolution Council, but we may be able to influence them should the topic of your rehabilitation come up.
The Absolution Council will not be my way to freedom. If you don't understand what lies in the north, then perhaps this is all beyond you.
Is there a kitchen in this guard room?
You all walked through the kitchen when you were at the dining hall. It's on the lowest level. There's, like, this room really is just the table, the stairs, and the two doors.
Okay.
So Brannick will kind of lean closer towards Baelish, and kind of quietly speak of ancient things. No?
Roll a persuasion check. Ah, so you're not entirely ignorant. Good. Then you know precisely why 10 Towns was so important to deliver. If the Arcane Brotherhood controls the 10 Towns, we can take to the Red Glacier. And if we can take to the Red Glacier, we can take what has been lost. And that is the most important thing.
And just so we're on the same page, why are you seeking it? Because those who sent us here have their own ideas of what you were looking for. I'm curious whether they had the right of it.
Kind of looking back around the room at all of you all. Let me get a history check from everybody but Brennick. And actually, Valixis, you can have advantage. So, kind of looking around, he sees at least like a little bit of understanding from Valixis. I feel like Jinbao would have a chance of knowing about the Netherese, and perhaps Trey looks a little bit lost. But he's going to kind of turn back to you and, oh, no, I don't know if I can control their magic. But if I could deliver the Netherese to the Arcane Brotherhood, my position would be solidified. That would be all one really needs in life. To find comfort in study, and I would have the magic of the world at my fingertips. I could be happy with such things. Don't you wish you had that power? And I think that'll be the first moment where he actually recognizes Valixis as a wizard as well.
Wait, so hold on. So you're telling me you want unlimited power and that would bring you comfort, and you wonder why the other group of big magical people don't want anything to do with you because you trying to run solo. Like, are you okay?
My boy, you don't understand. I wasn't going to take it all for myself. Delivering 10 towns was to give it to the Brotherhood. That is why I expected them to save me.
So what ended up happening then? Like, I mean, how did you lose out with such a surefire plan?
Not unlike yourselves. This little bitch, Devessa Shane, was able to hire some adventurers. And they were able to stop my machination. I was well underway, and she forced her way into power and was able to remove the base from below me. The Lord's Alliance has done all the rest. You know how this place works. There's very little left to do once you can't cast magic.
Oh yeah. I imagine Oral's presence here is obviously the 10 towns have suffered under her boot. I imagine that in theory would make your task easier.
Yeah, that is true. I perhaps could have gained at least a little bit more power with the darkness at hand. I probably could have started a cult of worshippers and used that against the weak and feeble-minded to gain a lot more power. But no, I started a normal business of trade, and it was quite profitable, and I was able to buy my influence. It's quite unfortunate that I was deposed prior to the darkness of Aro. It would have made life easier.
There are those who think perhaps you brought it with you.
Magic like this, and I would stay inside here. They must really think I like the warmth.
So if it's not too much trouble to ask, I mean, what's when you were taking over 10 towns and stuff, like were you good to the people themselves, or is the end goal to, like, do something sketchy and, like, commit murder of all these people in towns?
My process was purely financial. I had no stake in death.
So, like, all that legally that would go on with, like, an exchange of power, like, I mean, did you have legitimate claim to all of this? Or, I mean, I'm new. I do not know the backstory of this land. Y'all are a giant story, so please forgive me for playing catch up.
I'm far more of an importer-exporter. Did I have a claim to power? No. But what should that matter? I was taking it.
Well, Ailish, I must admit, You're not what I expected, but tell me, how did someone so as seemingly impressive as yourself, how did you let someone like Tuvessa Shane get the better of you?
Um, Presuming your intelligence, I don't feel like Brennick could have forgotten it this quick. He had mentioned she hired adventurers. Like, he was thwarted by her bringing in mercenaries.
Yeah, I guess more what he's getting at is like, how did she become aware of his, or was he, I guess, was he more open about his attempts rather than being secretive? Like, essentially, how did she get onto his plans to know enough to hire adventurers to stop him?
Yeah, I think realistically at that, he's got basically just like the story of it was during the actual power play. He had basically created an actual industry of trade where he was in control of it. And he had a lot of merchants who were essentially like with him, working for him, spies for him, and he was making the power play. And that's when he was thwarted. For what it's worth, I think at the start of 5th edition, this guy is the star of the adventure. It was like one of those box sets about Icewind Dale. So it all assumes that the players like didn't kill him in that adventure, but like that's what it was. Is there was basically an adventure that took place up here, and you stopped his power play.
And this network of yours, something strong enough to outlast your imprisonment?
My boy, you can't cut the head off of a snake and expect the snake to continue on with its life.
So, should you somehow find your freedom again, you would be starting off at square one again. I can't imagine someone like you wouldn't have some sort of contingency plans in place.
Also, if you cut a snake at any point in time down the middle, you're technically cutting its head off from one end of the other and can still survive.
What's Valixus doing?
Just watching.
Jimbo walks over. Jimbo walks over and asks her what book she was reading earlier.
She's a wizard. I was telling Valixis that they had a book. Rashad wasn't even that character at that point. It's just him with his spell book is what I was getting at to show that Valixis was a wizard.
Okay, because I was confused. I was like, huh?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I introduced your characters inside of like the setting that we were in previously. But all it was is to just show that Valixis was a wizard, like a creature of intelligence.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I walked over because I wanted to know what it was, what the name of the book was.
Oh no, she just explains it's just my own personal book. There's no specific name to it.
Baelish, if you're hoping to get free of this place, but you say that such a path does not lie through the Absolution Council, just what are you expecting or hoping to happen? From what little we've seen of this place, it seems fairly secure.
Precisely why I was hoping I had a friend who might break me out.
That's a rather grandiose hope.
Perhaps it is, but locked away in prison, there's little else for a person than to hope. And I've not seen anyone but the warden and the counselors for many years. So something is happening. And perhaps someone will break me out.
Well, you've said what you want. What could you offer someone who was hypothetically willing to entertain the notion?
You have everything that I have to give my knowledge, and I can fill in the blanks of what I've not told you. You were able to guess a little. I shared more in good faith. Do you intend to think now that it is honorable to deny me what is rightfully mine? You pose the question as if I am going to tell you, as if you would help me, and now you would like to renege on that and take it back.
Well, let us not pretend that you're the type who puts much stock in honorable deals. But I will admit you've piqued my interest, at least. But I think perhaps this would be something we'd need to discuss amongst ourselves.
Oh, is it that time to rally together and converse and someone, puts this guy in some other area?
Seems so.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and if you'll just follow me, and I'll grab him by the hand, but or by the forearm, and just be like, just follow me downstairs for a moment.
And you're gonna walk him to the guard room?
Yeah, just to hang out for a moment. So Brennick and um, I'm sorry, Val- Valilsic. Sorry, I'm really trying here.
Alexis.
Valixis, thank you. And Jin Bao have some time to talk about what to do from here.
So you can walk on back down to the observation room. One of the guards will take him back to his cell, and he will
Oh, I
be
don't
dying.
think we were finished interrogating him. It was more like they needed a moment to converse about all the information.
Well, I was thinking that would include Trey, but I'm sure if we decide we have more questions for him, maybe we can ask to speak with him again. But
Yeah, I was just more like, can you guys watch him for a moment so we can talk?
And they're gonna take him back to his cell.
Okay, so we only get one opportunity to talk to him.
No, but you took him back to the guards, and they're gonna take him back to his cell.
Basically, the guards are not going to let a prisoner just sit out freely. If we're not talking to him, he's going to be in the cell.
Precisely.
Can I ask?
That makes sense.
Can I ask a question? So the Arcane Brotherhood are the big baddies of the North. Magic users do what they want. We don't care what the laws are. Yada yada yada. Correct?
It's not even that nefarious. The Arcane Brotherhood is simply an organization that, at many points in time, operates outside of the law. But they're definitely not, like, simply big bads. They are just not traditional.
Kind of almost more amoral than evil, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. The Arcane Brotherhood is purely interested in magic. That's all. Any given person who's born with enough magical prowess probably wants to join the Arcane Brotherhood, and they seek out many of the most powerful people who have magical powers. But in the long run, like, they don't have any unifying good, evil, or just neutral bend. They're purely people who are kind of for the progression of magic.
Jin Bao asks Val- uh, Baelish,
I heard Jinbao ask Valish, but what were you trying to ask him?
does he know any information as to why the sun hasn't been out in like 16 months or however long it's been?
That was part of what Brennick was asking him, where he said it would have been beneficial if he tried to make his claim for power under the guise of a cult. He kind of outlined like that idea that it's a nice little like twist on what he was trying to do, but he effectively alluded to the fact that unfortunately that happened after he lost power. So I think for what it's worth, you all have a pretty good sense that as far as he's concerned, he had no part with the rise of the Rime of the Frost Maiden.
And like in general, it's attributed to the goddess Oral. As to why it's like kind of she took away the sun and has kind of encased this land in essentially eternal winter. I mean, it's always kind of winter up here anyway, but like even worse.
At any given time, people see Arl actually riding across the sky, casting the Rime too. One of the things that I felt like Brennick kind of picked up on is that you were notching off the questions that Devessa was accusing him of. Devessa very much has a bone to pick with this person, and that's why she was accusing him of a lot of these things. I feel like you kind of picked up on that because most people have at some point seen Auril flying across the sky, casting the Rime, and it is very clearly not the Arcane Brotherhood.
Yeah, so I guess it's almost more like he she has a beef with him, so she's scapegoating and maybe trying to get us to either force him to admit it or maybe just like say that he admitted it when we go to speak to her again or something. Yeah, she seems pretty cagey for uh, a teenager, I guess, or someone who appears to be a teenager.
I'm going to take it as to Jim Bao is aware that Brannick is a magic user at this point.
Yeah, I think that's safe. Like you would also have seen him kind of similar to Velixis, like as they were traveling during like their downtime and stuff. He would have been similarly kind of he has a spell book that he looks through and stuff like that. So yeah, Jim Bao would be aware of that.
Well,
Every
he turns to Brannick and say, "You wizards love to talk. Whether we're here to get the information or bust them out, let's be about it and get away from this. I have never seen such a desolate place in all my life. I don't like being here. Let's go."
Well, I mean, certainly if we did decide we wanted to extract him, that wouldn't want to do it without a plan in mind. But I think perhaps we've learned all from him that we can, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean that we all just walked through this place. Even trying to consider that as an idea is just insane to me. I mean, um, they got the people, they got the power, they got the brick and mortar. Anything that comes into this place typically does not come out.
If Alicia's kind of just one for a moment, as with any runes, he may, if he thinks someone may break him out, that whoever it is might have a way to disable the runes.
I mean, that's all well and good. I don't think we have any loyalty to this person other than the fact that there's a shared connection, if one at best that's sparse with, and I mean no offense, Brannick. Um, we came here for interrogation, get some information. I say we move on. I mean, I I agree with Jim Bao. It's like, I mean, who wants to stay in a prison?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no offense taken.
and uh, like is it like he was saying? Can can we? Were we here for one day only, and then we gotta go, or we have like access to the prisoner? In case I don't know if we asked the warden whether we could stay in case we didn't get the information on the first day.
I feel like maybe when Jimbao, when you were asking the guard as we were coming through the entrance about like leaving, maybe putting some of our stuff like in storage or, keeping it aside so we don't have to lug it around. I feel like maybe the guard had mentioned something about depending on how long we stay. So that seems to suggest that maybe we could stay longer if we wanted to, but I don't. That's just my guess.
I feel like you all would have a pretty solid understanding at this point that if you need the time, you are currently like effectively like honored guests in this place. So if you chose to stay and you asked for more time to interrogate, you've got it. Um, as far as things go, I think you all probably should understand in this place, as long as you don't step on any toes, you don't really have anything to worry about as long as you want to be here. Until you basically um, spoil like fish that's been around for too long.
Jim Bao says to Brannick, "We should discuss this further by ourselves."
Brannick will nod and kind of again say, I think perhaps you're right. Perhaps we've gotten what information we can from him now. But if you, I'll agree, this is not the most welcoming place. Perhaps we, I don't know, return to Bryn Shander and discuss amongst ourselves what our next move might be.
I don't
There,
know this place for anyone else, but you know, is there anyone else that's imprisoned here that we could speak with that is important to anyone else in the party? Like, would we be able to see a prisoner list and interview anyone off of it? Like, do we have that much leeway with the warden?
Do you want to ask?
Sure.
You want to go knock on the warden's door?
this is a waste of time. There are two choices. We are either here to interrogate him, or if we decide, him out. We should discuss this further by ourselves.
we are by ourselves.
No, Valus is in the room, right?
No, he got walked away a while ago. We basically retconned when you asked him a question. Do you see where the room is? It's just like the four of you right now. Like, are you focused on the center of the screen? On roll 20? But right now, no, you all are effectively in a private wall. I was saying before when you asked if you thought you were private when you all were alone, I said you all should have an understanding that you are alone, you are private, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that you should speak freely.
Gotcha.
But I think you all would also understand that that goes for the entire prison. Like, if you don't feel safe speaking here, you shouldn't feel safe in this prison. You have to leave before you can have that private of a conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how Brannick took Jinbel's meaning. So that's why he was suggesting maybe they, discuss this further, once they're back on the road.
Yeah, again, I think you did a pretty good job questioning him with Brannick. And effectively, again, like, you all stayed on pretty good terms. As far as things go, I think unless you all are planning on breaking him out, you're not really going to get anything else from this person.
Let's GTFO.
All right, let's go. Everyone, thank you so much for the hospitality. We're heading out.
So yeah, I think we will probably have you all effectively resting here. That is effectively Revels End, unless you go to war with the guards. Um, so you all will kind of pick back up with you back in Bryn Shindar. I think one of the other remaining quests that the group has currently to kind of move forward with is moving in the direction of the actual spire of the Netheril, that's kind of investigating in a different location. And perhaps the group will be kind of looking off after that next week, as you investigate the wizard from East Haven. And we'll kind of like pick up with that. Again, these are all very episodic parts of this chapter, so it's a pretty good solid time to basically see. I think more or less we'll actually have. Let me get a survival roll from Jin Tao again.